New Orleans Saints Derek Carr situation is now turning to an epic saga. It's frankly dumb and could have been mitigated, if not avoided completely. But what is even dumber is we had a very similar situation develop into a saga that lasted for quite a while, involving a high profile, highly paid player that didn't want to be with the Saints anymore. When are the Saints, and by Saints, I mean Mickey Loomis, when are the Saints going to learn their freaking lesson about this? I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So before I get started breaking down, for lack of a better word, I'm kind of calling it the drama timeline, and there it is right there. I had to cut it off with information as far as it got to Tuesday afternoon, because every time I kind of had this ready to go and start filming, there's something new would kind of come out. So it's a Tuesday cutoff. I'm doing this on Wednesday. Hopefully I'll have it up Thursday, and I'm quite sure in the meantime there'll be some type of breaking thing that just won't be included in this. We'll try to catch it up on the next one. Kind of the best I can do. But as I said, there's the timeline. And to me, this starts with, excuse the misprint, the 2024 Carr's 2024 season ends. Week 14, and I give him credit for the warrior spirit, but probably ill-advised if you're the starting quarterback trying desperately to make the playoffs and game you were probably going to win against the Giants. I get it. It was a desperate situation. If you get that first down, we're good. But you sacrifice your body at the expense of not being able to play the rest of the season. Again, I give credit where credit is due with Carr and his warrior spirit. He has been well known throughout his career, even with the Raiders, and then coming into the Saints, getting hit hard, getting banged up bad, and still being able to get back on the field a lot of times quicker than was expected. We saw that over the past two seasons. So I feel like you have to give credit where credit is due. Probably won't give a whole lot more credit to anybody involved in this conversation after that, but there it is. So Saints don't even IR him because they're expecting him to be able to come back quicker, and he was trying, didn't work out, so they never IR'd him. He never got back on the field. More than likely, the last we'll ever see of Derek Carr in a Saints uniform is him walking off that field in Meadowlands with the injured hand, wrist, and the concussion effects. At the time, I think there were some people viewing it as exactly what I just said. It might be the last time we're going to see him. But then as things played out, that's where the drama kind of started. And it really started January 7th. Because on January 7th is when we found out that Catherine Terrell had an interview. Catherine Terrell, ESPN reporter that also covers the Saints, had an interview with Derek Carr, which basically covered a lot of stuff if you ever read it or saw anything on it. But the main point that everybody focused on and is relevant to the timeline is this is when he let it be known he's not taking a pay cut. He tells Cat Terrell, yeah, I wouldn't do that, and he's backing up saying, especially what I put on tape. So would I restructure? He's throwing it out there. Yeah, absolutely. I'll restructure. I'll always help the team that way. Basically, as long as you pay me my money, I'll help the team. His prerogative. He signed a contract. Both parties knew what was on it. So he's just sticking to his guns. So a little while later, though, he throws in the line, we're good, build the team. But yeah, I wouldn't take anything less to do this. A lot of people, me included, cocked an eyebrow on that, going, it's once again, one of those Derek Carr kind of don't make sense comments, because a lot of quarterbacks, I will help the team. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll stop it there and not tack on but I'm not going to do it for less money. I'll help the team, but not for less money. Look, at this point, just stick to your guns and say, no, I'm not taking a pay cut. But it's always kind of been his MO, at least in the couple of years he's been in New Orleans. We'll backtrack on his own statement while he's talking to you in a matter of seconds. More than plenty video out there of him doing press conferences, constantly almost talking in a circle. And this is, if you go back and look when we were covering this, one of the things that a lot of people, me included, just cock an eyebrow going, that this isn't going to play out smoothly. I think we all knew that. I think we kind of knew it going in. But this is where we really, really, really started getting the indication. Next thing that happens, Super Bowl week comes up, not too long, about a month after that or so. And Carr's absence becomes a thing. He's nowhere to be found. Nobody sees him. And it starts getting pointed out when you had other team leaders and Saints players in the city, presence being fully known during that, representing the organization at a time when they were hosting the biggest event in the sport of football. I understand that you're recovering from an injury. You had a tough season. He and his family, from what I understand, don't live in New Orleans full time. I think out in California. You wanted to be with them at home. I get that. I think some people weren't considering that. I did. So if I got to bang on him for that, but I do understand how everybody took issue with, hey, and I kind of felt this way too. At some point, man, if we could just get him in here, make, an appearance over that couple of days, that would be tough. Just maybe come in 48 hours. The goodwill you could have built up within the community just doing that and not having us see, DeMario, Cam, those guys out there everywhere representing the organization, and you're the starting quarterback. You kind of feel like, man, a little effort would have went a long way, but I do feel like there was no intent, especially at this point now, where we are April 16th, going, I don't think there was ever any intent, not to be the guy. It was to get to be paid, right? Hindsight, all that stuff. But that's kind of where I feel you're sitting at that point. And this takes us all the way now, February 13th, just a few days later after the Super Bowl. Kellen Moore's hired. We hold a press conference. And of course, the name of Derek Carr, quarterback. Everybody knew it was going to come up, and this was the first attempt the media had at it.
Derek's a tremendous quarterback in this league. I've had so much respect for him, the journey that he's been on. He's a starter in this league. He's a premier player in this league. He's had a great journey, obviously going from Fresno State to the Raiders and now here. Really excited to team up with him and go through this process. And so just like any player on this roster, I just got here a few days ago, and I'm excited to go through this journey with all of them.
Not exactly a ringing endorsement of your starting quarterback, right? Very non-committal, very middle of the road. We talked about it at the time. Definitely leaving options open. And I think the way he's talking, you don't get the feeling from him as a fan going, yeah, he's overly committed to Derek Carr, but he does kind of throw the middle of the road caveat at the end of that going, but yeah, I haven't met everybody, still getting to know people. And I remember thinking at the time, has he and Carr even spoken? So quarterback guru, offensive coordinator guy coming in as head coach had a conversation with the guy that was the starting quarterback the last 2 years. I questioned it then and thought, no, but as he's saying, there's still a little time. But I think that's a communication between the organization and the starting quarterback at this point. Moving forward, I question if it was there at all. And from what I remember at the time of watching that and then rewatching it and adding this clip in here going, I'm if they said they had a conversation, I doubt that it ever actually happened other than just a little bit of lip service, sort of like he was doing at this point in the press conference. And the flip side of that is if I'm Derek Carr, yeah, I'm probably getting worried. I've already thrown that gauntlet out. I want my money. Now what's going to happen? That's about as non-committal could get. But they didn't stop there. They did try again.
Following up on Derek, do you view that as you guys have a decision to make at quarterback, or you view it as Derek Carr as a quarterback? I view it as Derek Carr is a tremendous starting quarterback in this league. We're fortunate to have him, and we're excited to go through this process. As we build this roster together. Again, I'm meeting these guys for the first time the last few days. Really excited to meet more of them, and this will be a lot of fun.
His comment was a starting quarterback in the NFL, not our starting quarterback, not my starting quarterback, not the Saints starting quarterback. And this was a few minutes after the first question. Press conference kind of moved along, but it came right back around to the question that everybody wanted to know: is Derek Carr coming back? And again, he gave the flowery, hey, he's a great quarterback. He's a good starting quarterback in the league, but there was still no ownership of, yeah, he's our starting quarterback. He's my starting quarterback. He's the Saints starting quarterback. We're going to go try to win this guy with this guy. Which everybody's thinking now, if you remember, and I was one of them going, man, we might be moving towards a rebuild, trying to find a younger quarterback or making some type of move. So again, we may be moving on from Derek Carr at this point. So we're at February 13th. Month and a half basically into 2025. We're already starting to go round and round on this, going, what's really going on with the new head coach, the organization, and the old starting quarterback. Okay, so now let's fast forward 13 days to February 26th when NFL Combine is getting ready to get into full swing. Mickey Loomis mentions to some of the New Orleans media members present that basically, and I think I got the quote exactly right as far as I can tell, but Mickey Loomis told them, Derek Carr is the guy we can win with. Derek Carr is the guy we can win with. Which, at that point, me and everybody else assumed, hey, Carr's coming back. He's going to be the starter. There's no rebuild. We're rolling it back. Bunch of us were just kind of at that point going, really? After everything in the timeline so far that's gone on, that we've just covered, you haven't committed to him. He seems to have not really been interested maybe in coming back to New Orleans. Some type of divide. Okay, so at that, we're going, okay, they must have worked out their differences, and there's no way we can give him that $30 million guarantee that's sitting there, so they probably worked it out. He may not take a pay cut. He just may have to defer like he did the previous year, $10 million into the next year, and we'll give him 20 plus the 10 from last year. That's 30. That leaves 10 left over. They can rework the contract. He gets a full year this year to prove I'm not going to be the bridge. I am the quarterback because we're going to try to go win all the stuff we were discussing back at the end of February around the combine. Looking at the draft at that point on, we're going, okay. So they're rebuilding. What do we need to do? Because if you're not rebuilding, rolling it back. What do we need to do? Because at that point, if you can try to win the division, make the playoffs, well, shit, let's go ahead and make an honest to God effort to win a division and try to make the playoffs. But nobody is thinking there's no way you can guarantee that 30 mil. Not this year. You just can't keep assuming this because we knew how it was going to happen. They were going to give it to him as a signing bonus. And basically keep piling on dead money at the end, basically for the end of his contract or whenever he leaves New Orleans. We were wrong. March 8th, 2025, Saints restructured Derek Carr, and the way they restructured is they give him the whole shebang, the $30 million, on top of the $10 million that was guaranteed from 2023, or 2024, rather, the very beginning of the season, the roster bonus. Roll it up. He takes his $1.255 million salary. The rest of it is a signing bonus, 38 point something million. That is now carried over as dead money. I wasn't happy about it. Not very many people were happy about it. Going, now this has to work. You got to make this work. Okay. You basically have to, you're forcing yourself to go back all in, right? Once again, as long, it's been failing year after year. But this decision, and the Saints fans, we're going to bitch and moan about it, but try to get behind it. But I don't think too many of us were looking at this going, there's no way. There's no way this team is going to win at the rate you need them to win at this year. Not the way it's constructed. Taking a whole new look at the upcoming draft, going, yeah, you've got to add some major league talent that's going to show up and play. More than one player, more than one rookie's going to have to do it to even have a shot at this, right? Nobody's confident. Nobody's confident. Fast forward to April 1st, Kellen Moore is speaking at the NFL owners meeting. Normally, this is Mickey Loomis. He wasn't there, apparently preparing for the draft or whatever he was doing. So Kellen Moore is there, and he's the one that's taken Mickey's place as the guy normally talking to the media.
Derek, I'm excited to have him back with us really shortly. Obviously, April 14th will start, and I think that's the fun part. These guys go through the offseason. They have a chance to spend time with their family, invest in all that, which is the right thing to do.
So a little bit wrapped up into that comment. But basically, the gist of it, at the very beginning of it, he's saying, well, look, when our offseason stuff starts, April 14th, we expect Derek to be there. We're excited to work with him. Kind of mentions, a little bit how, they have to have some time off in the offseason, be with the family. We understand all that. Kind of almost going, okay, like we're going all the way back to Super Bowl weekend now, aren't we? Or Super Bowl week. Going, okay, there's your pass. It may have seemed like he didn't want to be here, but, it's okay because stuff like that. Sort of like I mentioned, I can understand it a little bit. I don't necessarily, wish it would have played out differently. Would have been better had he been able to be here. And I kind of take almost that. Maybe it's my bias on the subject, but similar to what he's saying. But it doesn't matter. Come that Monday, basically at that point, almost 2 weeks, you can be here ready to get to work with the rest of the guys. It's a voluntary phase, but they're all the guys that are interested in winning. Obviously, you would think are going to be there. And he's a starting quarterback. He's a team leader. We're expecting him to be there. We are all excited about it. Yeah, not exactly how it played out at all, is it? So in the interim of April Fool's Day, I guess that's what it was, April 1st, Kellen Moore making those comments, we get a little blip that I think some people missed. It was on April 9th, roughly a week later, Cam Jordan makes an appearance on the NFL Network's Good Morning Football. And I think it's a very small, he was on the whole hour and a little talking about the Saints for a few minutes, but there is a very quick little set of comments basically that popped in there that, lack of a better word, I found really interesting.
We were facing the next man up every week, including at our quarterback position, which is probably the most important position for our offense. Quarterback dishes the ball out. Next thing you know, we're trying, we're inserting Spencer Rattler. We're inserting Jake Hayner back to Spencer Rattler to Derek Carr. And so give me a healthy Derek Carr, and I can tell you where a healthy Saints state of mind will be.
Give me a healthy Derek Carr, and I'll tell you where a healthy state of mind, Saints state of mind will be. So basically, he was talking. If you go back and watch the whole segment with the whole conversation they were having with him about the Saints, he's kind of given the all in. Derek's the guy. He's going to be back. We have all the faith in him. Reiterating last year with all the injury problems the Saints have, well, he was a big part of it. We were playing revolving door at quarterback, and kind of implied in there, he didn't, even though he didn't say it specifically, sort of like we were talking about the beginning of the timeline, we still had an outside chance with 4 games left to go. We lost him and we couldn't get him back. But I feel like if we get him for 17 games, we're fine. We're going to win some football games. Now, part of the clip I didn't play that he said earlier, he was basing it on, look what happened the first 2 weeks when everybody was healthy and the offense was going good, and look how great we look, yada, yada, yada. Now, not here to debate that point, but you obviously had a team leader 8 days after the head coach is expecting, hey, he's going to be here and he's all in, and we're looking for him at the start of the offseason stuff on the 14th. Week later, not even a week before that's supposed to start, one of your biggest team leaders out there just reinforcing that, backing that up. And I didn't see it at the time. I heard about it well after the announcement that came out 2 days later, which we're going to get to in a second. And when I went back and looked at it, I'm sitting here going, if I'm Cam, I'm a little pissed off at somebody, okay? Unless he, much like Kellen Moore the previous week, if either one of them knew something and they went out there with some great poker face enthusiasm, just ignored the elephant in the room that, hey, no, our starter's going to be there. We're looking forward to, he's the guy that's going to help us win, blah, blah, blah. Or they didn't know, regardless of who knew what, when, why, and how. They both, especially Cam Jordan, because he's really doubling down on we're going to win if he's healthy and we've got him for 17 games. If I'm Kellen Moore, I'm a little perturbed. Nobody really let me know what's going on. If in fact everybody knew what was going on by April 1st. If I'm Cam Jordan and people knew what was going on about April 9th, and I damn well know people in the organization knew he was about to go do an hour, 2-hour show, whatever it is, on the NFL Network. Just, hey, look, you might want to avoid this. Keep it under your hat right now. But DC's got a shoulder injury, right? Really making me believe, going, no, they didn't have a clue, no early warning. And like I said, if I'm Cam, I'm kind of pissed about this situation. Going, bad enough, I'm coming back, and he is one of the guys to take a pay cut to do it, to try to win. But now this shit's going on, and then I got to go to national TV and say something that apparently at the time I said it was bullshit. Yeah, I'd be a little aggravated, because what happened 2 days later, of course, is Ian Rappaport breaks that Carr could miss the 2025 season. You know, and very early on that Friday and into the weekend, reports coming out, the Saints knew about it and they weren't caught off guard. And I said at the time, I'll say it now, and I'll keep saying it until somebody can provide enough evidence to not make me believe it. That's either 100% bullshit, or they did know significantly, and they kind of let their coach and one of their top guys, not to mention fans and the rest of the team, and the guys actually have to get on the field and play this year, kind of left us all in the dark and in a little bit of a way that's also kind of bullshit. But, you know, I find it hard to believe they had no inkling, none, that something was off, something was wrong. So in a 10-day span, you kind of move on from a coach. And then, like I said, one of your biggest team leaders coming out and backing that winning horse that our starting quarterback's going to be there. We ready to work, healthy. He's healthy. We're going to win football games. To where you were just on the 11th, for basically 4:00 in the afternoon Central. Going, what in the hell? Everybody getting blindsided. Monday, April 14th, Albert Breer, as part of his normal, for Sports Illustrated, I believe that's where he's working, but it's his Monday morning kind of quarterback piece that I think he writes every Monday. I'm not a huge Albert Breer follower, full disclosure, but this got out there, and I went and tracked down the whole article he was writing, and there was a section on Derek Carr, very similar but not quite detailed as what we've done so far in this video, breaking down a timeline. But towards the end, this paragraph comes up, in which he says, you know, tying that timeline together, it's like brings us to where we are now. The highlighted portion, the Saints knew about the shoulder issue. What I'm less sure about is if they view it as something that was actually threatening his 2025 season. And he goes on as the person that I think everybody was getting the idea that the story I've heard from Carr's camp, and that's important, it's from that 23 AC joint sprain, which he injured 3 separate times over the 2023 season for the Saints, got knocked out of some games, but never missed the following game. So what you're doing there is that's like the preemptive strike that this did come from Carr's camp as far as anybody's concerned, according to Breer. And they were referencing this shoulder injury from the previous season in 2023 as suddenly an issue, which raising way more eyebrows now. More questions are coming out than we had previously over the weekend before this broke on Monday. And fuel to the fire showed up on Tuesday regarding this. But the biggest thing that when I saw that was this was post my previous video, which was kind of up until the weekend at the point. And I hadn't gotten to the point where I could do this timeline and try to walk all the way through everything that happened in the order it happened. It took a little while to track all that down. But after that video was out and everything, and I'm starting to do research on the timeline, and I'd caught on to this but earlier, Monday afternoonish, before I could really sit down and look into it, going, holy crap, what is going on here? And I think what is going on is basically, tie this all together. And Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel, former Saints backup quarterback, has a podcast called Scoop City. I think they kind of drilled it. I think they kind of hit the nail on the head as far as this whole thing's concerned.
A lot of text messages and conversations over the last few days about the Derek Carr situation. And it was very hard for me to find someone in football who said, oh, Derek's definitely dealing with a serious shoulder injury. It was, how long you been doing this? You know what this is about, right? And trade bait, right?
Yes.
End of the day, that's what this is about.
You texted me when this went down. You're like, what's happening? I was like, this is not normal for Ian Rappaport retweeted it or tweeted it. I'm like, that for sure had to come from Derek Carr's agent, because there must have been like a meeting. Let's get it out right away. It's just.
Well, look at the timing of it, right? We're a little over a week away from the draft. Teams are still in need for quarterback. People are making their decisions. Maybe this is to allow teams some flexibility and understanding with what they want to do in the upcoming draft. There's a lot more to the story.
There's a lot more to the story. Now, in case you didn't hear about it or catch any of the clips, I just played kind of the very end of about a 10, 12-minute conversation that Rossini and Daniels had. But it all started, just the paraphrase 20-second overview. It all started when she was doing research on this story. She also kind of uncovered that it sounded like it was released by Derek Carr's camp. And as she was doing research, and they apparently had talked about over the course of their podcast about different. They even showed a clip from a while back, but right about the time they were hiring Kellen Moore. Some of the stuff we talked through this timeline over this period, and about the hiring of Kellen Moore, and maybe Carr may not be on board and what's going on. They kind of played through their version of all that. It's not all that dissimilar from what we've already talked about. But as they're coming down, and she's trying to research, figure out what's happening, she seems to uncover what Albert Breer was suggesting this was released by Carr's camp. And Chase Daniels is sitting there going, yeah, I hear that. I'm thinking some type of angle they're trying to work out, especially trying to force somebody's hand, maybe getting this close to the draft, whatever their thought process is involved. Now, she said while she was trying to research this, she had people from around the league, whatever that means. And I'm not trying to discredit her reporting at all, just pointing out we don't quite know where their sources are coming from. But Chase Daniels, the important part of that, kind of admitted he was one of them because he even said, we were texting. I told you. He said that what he basically said at the end of the clip. This is some type of trade bait. This is trying to force something with the draft coming up. So I think there's some relevance and importance of it. That there are some players, and in the course of the earlier conversation, he gave an example when he was kind of in the middle of this at Philly when they had Sam Bradford and drafted Carson Wentz. And a kind of a similar situation in a weird way played out. So he's had some experience with this, seeing it. You just kind of have to ask yourself, where in the world have we seen recently a high-profile, high-paid player of the Saints get some type of injury that we're uncertain how serious it is or isn't, has largely not been in contact with the team during the offseason, gives off I don't want to say he gives off the vibe. It's perceived. I want to be more accurate. It's perceived by some people in the media and a lot of fans, and I'm not so certain some of the people in the organization at the time, he doesn't want to be here anymore, and he's playing angles as a way to force himself out, which he never did. And it ended in a bloody, messy, terrible divorce at the end of 2023. Meantime, you still had all the contract issues with him. You still had to do some restructures with him. And as we speak, he's been off the team over a year, and we are finally this year cleaning up the last of his dead money, his cap hit. I'm talking about Michael Thomas. And now, it is not apples to apples comparison between the two players on many different levels, just saying that all of a sudden, a very similar circumstances hitting the Saints. They did not handle the Michael Thomas thing well from that point on at all, and possibly could have cost, as rumor has it, some other Saints players that we probably would have liked to have kept that found their way one way or the other out of New Orleans in the meantime. Are we setting ourselves up for a similar situation? It's possible. It's not going to end well. Okay. At this point, I do not see how this is going to end with everybody hugging and dancing and singing Kumbaya that's involved. It's over and it's done. And they cannot play around with a situation like they did with Michael Thomas. And I'm not banging on him. I'm more or less banging on the Saints because I blame the organization most of the time for this. Even if the player is making incredible demands for money or whatever, it's still the organization's fault. You can't find a way to move on from it and get yourself out of it before it ends like it ended a year and a half ago. And they're setting themselves up for the same bullshit right now. Regardless of how you feel about Derek Carr and he wanted his money, this and that, and even this, how he's forcing himself out, I am not pleased about it. We have seen plenty of examples around the league. DK Metcalf being the most recent that just, hey, I want to trade. And the organizations are like, if you don't want to be here, we got to figure out the best way to move you on and still benefit us. I think that possibility may or may not have existed for Carr, but at the very least, the best way to move on from Carr was not to pay him the money, knowing possibly that you could move on from him after this year and have to deal with all that. Well, when you thought he was healthy, that was your game plan, and it's still kind of a dumb one. But now, look, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And Mickey better have shame on me printed across his T-shirt, his forehead, and all his business letterhead, billboards around town. Because this is just, it's too similar of a situation. It's whoever is the villain or the bad guy, because everybody always wants a bad guy. Look, they both are, neither are. I don't really care. My problem, how many more times are you going to go through this before you decide to take ownership and accountability of building bad rosters and making bad financial decisions and then creating more problems by trying to keep the two married together when a divorce is coming from a mile away and everybody else can see it. How often do we have to play this out? Second time in less than 5 years, you've had, again, not the exact same scenario with the exact same players involved, but a scenario that mirrors each other so much and is so bad for the organization and the people trying to coach it, the players trying to play in it. At some point, timelines like these, and if I'd have wanted to make this video an hour longer, I guess I could have went back and tried to find the whole play out of the Michael Thomas timeline too. The circumstances, the names, and everything will be different. But as far as I can remember that whole mess, this actual lack of communication, somebody bullshitting somebody, if not both sides bullshitting both sides, playing this out just the way it played, does nothing to help the team, does nothing to help the organization, probably would never really help the player. Especially nowadays, because once again, if you want out, most teams just ask for it. I think the bottom line is there was no way you could really ask out and get your money. And that might be the problem where the point where I have a problem going, yeah, you can't have that both ways. Either you're out or you get your money, you show up and you play ball. Wrapping this up, the biggest takeaway, if there is one that you can really get from this lump of hot mess that has become Derek Carr and New Orleans Saints, is the Saints are getting really, really bad roster, financial management, human resources, everything. Because although, and this is totally from like a 30,000 foot view of this, of both situations, the people, the places, the times, the money, the circumstances, everything are completely different between Michael Thomas and Derek Carr, except for the fact that in both situations, you're high profile players who make a lot of money, work themselves, whether it's by their own doing, the fault of the organization, or the more than likely the combination of both, to get to this situation where it's not about team building and winning games anymore. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like somebody really wanting to leave and somebody trying to force them to stay. And to me, I keep saying it, that is just dumb. At some point, the organization has to realize, whether it's our fault, their fault, or nobody's fault, we're in a bad situation that unless we part ways, it's only going to get worse to the point you get a shit show like we've gotten the last 3 months. Let me know what you think in the comments. Yeah, first time here, I'd appreciate a subscribe, a like, let everybody know. I don't know. Have y'all, other than this overall situation of just dumbness, am I missing any more recently other than Michael Thomas? I feel like I have, but I think Carr and Thomas are by far the two biggest that draw attention. This is getting to be, I don't know, a series of videos. So I'll go ahead and on the end card, which will be coming up soon, one of the two slots, I'll have the most recent video of this happening from Monday. This is kind of the update. And the reason why I'm using the word update, I can almost guarantee you that something has popped that's going to force me to send some other type of update before the weekend or during the weekend. So speaking of the weekend, it is Easter weekend. So happy Easter, everyone. Have a safe and happy holiday weekend for sure. So if it's all quiet on the Saints front, probably going to take the weekend off and resume back up for Monday, but I doubt that's going to happen. So just make sure you got notifications. And if something happens, we got to do a video, likely to be part 3 of this saga we're going through now, and just make it a flat out trilogy. You'll be notified and be able to watch it. Remember, a week from tomorrow, likely a week from today, because I think you're probably not going to be able to see this till Thursday. We'll be live for the draft, the first round. We're going to kick it off about 15 minutes before the draft starts, get all the way through the Saints pick, and then from there, go as far as we can go. I think it's going to be an interesting night. It's going to be a fun night, both around the NFL, but also in Black and Gold Network community. So really hope you'll join us for that. So until I see you either this weekend or back on regular schedule next week, I'm Tim. Peace out and hoot at.